What's going on, everybody? Feder here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another episode in the direct drive battle. In this series, I check out as many direct drive machines as I can and we compare them against each other, see what manufacturers are doing what, is somebody doing the right thing, someone doing the wrong thing, what we like, what we don't like. And the best way I know how to do that is to unbox these machines and do some tests in around about a week or so and give you my opinions and first impressions of each of the machines. Then to wrap up, what I do is over time I keep using the machines and then I give them all a score. Check out the link popping up above me now for the finale of the previous season so you can get an idea for how I evaluate these machines and what some of that criteria is. But let's get right to this machine. This is actually the smallest printer box that I have had here on the channel. And that's because Tronxy is doing something special here with this machine. As you guys can see in this little preview, we have a small cantilever style machine. So typically machines are around 220, 235 by 235 on the bed, somewhere in that area. That's kind of like the average 3D printer. And most of them have kind of like an H style printer, as you can see some behind me, or frame rather. Whereas this takes off one side because they want this thing to be small and not take up a lot of space. So we've been featuring a lot of big machines back to back on the direct drive battle, so it's nice to take it back and dial that down all the way to 180 by 180, 180. So a much smaller machine, barely takes up any space, and there's a bunch of unique things that Tronxy has done with this particular machine called the Crux 1. This one's the PEI version of the machine. There's two. There's a slightly cheaper one, slightly more expensive one. They're both right around $190, $180, so they're literally under 200 bucks. So it's going to be nice to see if something like this is worth getting into, because this particular machine has a lot of cool features. The reason why I mentioned what it looks like is from a distance it might look like the very popular Prusa mini machine. Those are open source, so a lot of companies have taken to that machine and have kind of spun their own ideas on it, and this one has done that as well. It's obviously a direct drive machine, has a nice cooling fan here on the top, PEI spring sheet, like I mentioned before, has a touch screen. One of the unique things with this machine, or one of the several unique things, is the power supply is in the bottom, so you don't have this giant power supply sitting somewhere. I know some people like that, and that's good for enclosures and such, but it's also good for not taking up space. So the other things that this has that are unique is the way that this cantilever system works is the extrusions actually have a rod embedded into it. And this is something that's unique to Tronxy or Tron XY, whichever one of those it is, as far as I know. I have a Tron machine back here. This is their larger IDEX machine. I've been using it over the years, or year, I guess, for dual color prints, and it has that similar system where the extrusions literally have an embedded rod. So the thing that this does in a unique way is instead of having wheels or bearings or bushings rather, this has literally metal wheels that are attached to metal rods. So kind of interesting mechanics. And you know, mine has lasted. It doesn't seem to be affected by dust or grease, which is nice. So I think this is going to be a really interesting little machine. That's actually as far as I know about it. I've never used it, so it's going to be interesting to see how it's built. I know Tronxy isn't necessarily going for premium here at such a low price. This is definitely an extremely budget-oriented machine. So let's find out what it's all about. The way we're going to do that is we're going to unbox this machine. I'm going to show you everything that's in here. I'm going to quickly assemble it, and then we're going to see what's on the SD card, and we're going to print it. I have some this beautiful keyline colored PLA Plus, so we're going to use that for the test prints, see how it does, and then maybe we'll throw some other materials at it just to see how it copes with things like TPU, things like that, because I know a lot of people buy direct drive machines to print flexibles. All right, so why don't we just take it out of the box and see what it's all about. Let's go. All right, let's open up the box. I got my blade. All right, first things first, we got the manual, we have the power cable, the cutest little tiny PEI spring sheet you've ever seen. Looks like we have a little sampler of gold PLA. We have some tools here, some cables. Let's see what's in this bag. Nice full-size Allen key. I like that. Cable for plugging it into a machine or a Raspberry Pi. We have some hardware, M4 screws, lots of zip ties, and then the typical wrenches, little Allen keys, which these were a little bigger, but that's okay, especially because this is in here. We have a metal handle, actually has some weight to it, and our SD card and SD card reader, and it looks like it's branded. Let's see how big the card is. 8 gigs. Okay, not bad. I'll set that aside. Oh, almost missed the spool holder. It's the same style as the Gemini S, and I was actually really surprised by how well this just really simple piece of metal worked. It has a lot less friction than plastic, actually. All right, that's it, actually. The rest is just the machine, so let me take it out of here. All right, looks like it comes in 2 parts like this, and it's connected by a cable, so don't just go yanking the one part. But yeah, after opening all of these giant 300, 400 millimeter machines, this looks hilariously small. So far, it has a bunch of weight to it. Looks like it's fairly well built. All right, let me bring you in a little closer. All right, looks like it's really well balanced like this. But essentially here is the cantilever, and the direct drive rides on these rollers right here. And as you can see, this extrusion has an embedded rail on top and bottom, and it has some smooth action. They roll really, really smoothly, so that's definitely nice. Looks like the Z-axis is still riding on your regular wheels with a centric nut. Let's take a look at the Z. We have a solid coupler with a little split for the Z, and the top of the lead screw has a bearing in it. Okay, I see a little PTFE tube at the top here. I see a yellow spring, that's always good for tension. Let's see if we can see the hot end. Yeah, better to see it from this side, although it might be a little bit too dark for you guys. I can see that the hot end is one of those threaded hot ends that has a tube going all the way through it. Threads going all the way through it that kind of thread into the extruder itself and into the block, which means that has a PTFE tube going all the way through. And actually this PTFE tube that you see here, that's kind of like a reverse Bowden because the filament sits off to the side here, and we'll see how all that works in a sec when I put it together. So it looks like assembly is going to be a breeze. Just assemble it by putting these bolts on, and then it should be done. There's nothing else really to it. Interestingly enough, it looks like we have to put on the magnet ourselves. Really easy to do. And what I mean by that is this, and I guess that's easier. Underneath here there's a magnet. That's how the sheet holds on. So it looks like we're gonna have to stick that on there. Keep in mind, guys, that this blue film has to come off. I've actually seen some videos of people putting the magnets on top of this, but this is a protective film over top of the aluminum, so be sure to do that. This is how the Z has a limit switch. It's really easy to adjust, interestingly enough. Looks like our belt is tensioned by the motor itself on the Y, and it looks like the Y also has the same rail mechanism. Feels very sturdy. There's absolutely no play there. The springs look like they have plenty of tension, which is also nice. Sometimes these are really loose springs, and it makes for a floppy bed and something that's hard to level. Good tension there. Nice little screen. I'm assuming this is a protective film on here. Yep. We'll have to take that off because it looks a little bit matte. Actually, it's kind of strange. You can kind of press down. I wonder if it's one of these like really cheap, inaccurate screens. I mean, what are we going to expect for 180, 190 bucks? So eager to see what that is all about. All right, so not much to this machine, but still some really interesting features. Really excited this has such a big fan on it with a nice 3D printed shroud. Looks simple. Okay, let me go ahead and assemble this machine, and let's check out some of the menus. I almost forgot to show you what's in here, so let's go ahead and do some exploring together. Let's figure out what Tronxy has put down in the bottom here. Let's take a look at the motherboard. Let's see what's up. All right, nice and compact in here. Everything looks really good at first glance. Let's go ahead and go over what we're seeing here. Nice chunky little fan over here. It looks like it's held on by a single standoff, a metal standoff right over here, and it's nice and tight. It can't be easily rotated. But what I like about it is not only is it getting fresh air from here, but it is blowing directly onto the stepper drivers, so that's really nice. I do see that they're non-replaceable, as in they're soldered directly onto the board, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. One thing I do see right away is there are no ferrules attached to the terminals over here. So what we're going to do is, while we're in here, we have it open, I'm going to put on some ferrules. So let's go ahead and just start that while I'm kind of talking about everything else. Everything else that I'm looking at seems to be pretty solid. In terms of the wiring, looks like it's managed quite well. I'm not familiar with this particular brand of power supply, but it is one of the smaller power supplies. And one thing to note is I did notice that the adjustment on the top here was in 220 for me, so definitely make sure you pay attention to that if you're buying it in the United States and you want it to be at 110 volts at the top there. In case you guys didn't know, here's how majority machines come from China and other manufacturers, not just China, let's be real. But what they typically do is they have a tinned tip just like that, and the bad part is that that tinned tip, after plenty of use on the machine, getting hot, getting cold, etc., etc., it can melt a little bit and wiggle free, and usually when these terminals start to wiggle, they can start to get extremely hot and just burn the wire, lose the connection, or potentially cause some smoke or fire. So the best course of action is to go ahead to remove some of that wire. Let's go ahead, take a little bit off here. Let's take off just a little bit more. There we go, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and spin that a bit. We are going to pick a connector. Looks like blue is the perfect size. I'm going to slide it all the way to the end of it here. Let's see, can you see that behind my hand? There you go. And then we are going to get this tool that kind of just slides over the tip. Let's see, just like that. And then you push it until it releases. There you go. And now this connection is metal on metal. It can't get loose. And best of all, it can't get hot. So when we put it back in here, we make sure that it's sitting nice and flat, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten it with this little flathead. There you go, nice and tight, and that is a really solid connection. So like I say, whenever you're in a machine, just if you notice that they're off, go ahead and throw these. I'll throw a link in the description for this particular set or something really similar. They're really inexpensive, and it's a nice cheap insurance on all of your 3D printers. I usually really like it when these come in here, but we're in here already. This takes literally seconds to add, so no big deal. Otherwise, everything else in here looks really good. I have nothing to complain about. I did notice, as you can see the shiny part right over here, the bed is insulated. It looks good. Oh, and just before we leave here, looks like I see a level sensor area. So there you go. There is some expansion on the board for a leveling sensor, and it is right there on the bottom. Has nice little rubberized feet on the bottom here. I'm going to go ahead and finish off these 3 connectors, put it back, and then we'll assemble the machine. Let's go. Alright, so let's take a look at the screen. I noticed there is a lot of glare on the screen. This is the best I can do. Hopefully you guys can see everything on here. So let's take a look at the menu. The screen is a little bit small, but that's not a big deal. This is a small printer, and I think that everything is nicely packaged in it. So let's take a look from the top here. Let's go to System, see what's in Info. Alright, just some basic info, version 2.16.1. It says Marlin, okay. This, I'm assuming, is the little beeps or the sound when you turn the machine off or on. Let's go to status. All right, this just gives you all the measurements. Right now it's not home, so it doesn't know what any of those things are. This is, I'm assuming, temperatures, X, Y, Z's. Okay, Pretty basic stuff. Alright, language, don't need to go there. Default, I guess this takes everything, all the settings that you have saved back to default. Alright, not too much going on in system. Let's check out tool. We have stopping of the motors. Manual movement, I'm guessing. Let's see the Z up. Okay, as soon as we moved, the fan on the bottom turned on, which is what's supposed to happen. This machine, I can happily say, does not run any fans when nothing is going on, and I'm very happy about that. I do think that's how it should be. Nice and quiet on the steppers. I'm not going to press the extruder because it's not heated. Yeah, okay, nice and quiet movement. Okay, let's keep going. We have preheat settings. From what I remember about Tron machines, if you just click the center, it starts the preheat. There you go, it preheats to 200 on the hot end, and you can go plus and minus to give them exact measurements. Actually, let's just go ahead and heat that to 60 so we can level, and this to 200 so we can level while we're taking a look at everything else. All right, let's go back. And it sounds like the hot end fan just kicked on as well, very quietly, mind you, so that's nice. The only other menu here is level. Let's see what that's all about. Please choose level mode manual. I'm guessing that's what that little plug was for. If you plug in an ABL, you can have more settings here. I'm not going to hit this right now. I'll do it when the camera is not right over top of the machine. So let's see what this arrow does. Okay, filament. I'm guessing this is how you swap filament. Yep, exactly. Just telling you how much the hot end is heated to. And we have fan. Okay, this lets us turn fans on and off. This is the cooling fan. Let's see what it sounds like with all the fans running at the same time. Oh yeah, totally manageable. Okay, yeah, the fans are not too loud. The loudest fan is the very bottom fan that cools the CPU, but it's not too bad. Let's go back. All right, so that's the simplicity of the machine. Not too many settings to calibrate the machine, but you can always plug this into your computer and use something like Pronterface to make calibration, such as E-steps, PID tuning, that type of thing. So yeah, nothing in the menus, sadly, but this is a basic machine, going to be an entry-level machine for beginners, so yeah, they kept this really simple. Let's see what's in print. Alright, looks like the SD card, which is plugged into a USB adapter, by the way, so I'm not using the actual SD card slot. I'm using the USB, just a little bit easier. Let's see what's in this folder. We got video material, the test model. Okay, that's probably where we need to go. Instructions, Cura slicing software, you know, the basics. So let's go to the test model. We have a calibration cube, Crux 1 of the wind cooling. Okay, Crux 1 Doramian is hanged. Wow, that's interesting. And Crux catch the demon. Yeah, I think we're gonna catch the demon. I wonder what the rest of that says. Is there more? And we have the Platus cat. All right, that's we know what that is. We've seen the cat print before, but this, the catch, catch the demon of N, and you can't quite see the rest. So that's about how much you're going to be able to see if your file name is really long. It doesn't scroll. Interestingly enough, you can trash the file, so be careful not to do that in case that's not something you wanted to do. I'm assuming play would just start the file, and this is the file that we will do once the printer is nice and leveled. So yeah, extremely simple on the menus. Looks like it's nice and zippy. I'm not waiting for anything. I'm not double pressing anything. Looks like it's nice and quick. As I said, double press. I have to press a little bit harder in this corner. Okay, nothing to complain about on this menu at all. Let's go ahead and see what leveling is all about. And yeah, let's see what that demon is. Alright everybody, that's the Tronxy Crux 1. If you guys want the TLDR, the summary of what I'm about to go on in detail about, I think this is an extremely perfectly priced, value-oriented machine. You get a lot for $180, $190. There are other printers that are of similar performance in this price range, but I don't know of one that has quite the same amount of features and the size requirement. So if you guys want something that's actually really capable, but that is also extremely small in footprint, take a look at this machine. However, I definitely implore you to listen to the pros and cons, or cons and pros, I guess, in our case, because it did fill the page as I used the machine. So let's just go over the things that I've printed so far. Everything that has been printed here in terms of the PLA was 3D Max filaments, lots of cool, interesting colors. The TPU was, I think it was the company's called Pryline. I buy this stuff on Amazon. It's 95A, super soft stuff, and it prints much better than some of the previous TPUs I had. If I need TPU, I'm buying that. And then the PETG that I printed last is in California filament. I'll have links below, affiliate links below to all this stuff. I think 3D Max has a 5% off their already discounted prices. California filament all the way up to 25%. And Pryline, I don't have a discount code for. Actually, that's just a thing I bought on Amazon. So I'll link you to it if you're interested. But so this printer can do PLA really well, as you can see in the prints. TPU knocked it out of the park. I'll definitely be printing more TPU on this machine, and PETG. The reason why I didn't test anything else, even though I've seen some YouTube channels actually do it, is because the throat, the heat break on this machine is lined with PTFE tubing, and I'm not going over PETG temperatures with that tube in the heat break. Now, with that said, I'll go over an upgrade a little later in the pros. So that is something you can fix, but I think for what it is right out of the box, the fact that it can print these three materials this well with literally no calibrations or issues, I really like. Now, there is an issue that I found with slicing your own files in Cura, which is the choice of slicer according to their manual. So let's just dive right into the cons of the machine. So starting off kind of petty with the cable wraps are super stiff and cheap. So this is kind of a thing with all Tronxy machines. There's another machine over here that I kept from Tronxy. I really like this machine. It's an IDEX machine. It prints in 2 colors. And it uses some similar mechanics, except it's much larger. It's a 300 by 300 by 400 machine. And it too has these cable ties, and it cheapens the machine. Obviously, it is a cheap, budget-oriented machine, but that doesn't mean it has to look and feel like it, right? I feel like any other way of binding cables together would be better than these. I don't even know what you call them. I guess just plastic cable management. Anyway, let's just move right on. No crimp connectors or ferrules on the motherboard. So there are crimp connectors on the power supply. There's actually no other way to do it, so that's not a surprise. But while they were in there, they tinned the wires instead of ferrules. Now, I can't just fault Tronxy XY. There's a lot of companies that do this. Majority of printers that I receive here don't have ferrules. So I highly suggest you guys pick up a kit. I'll link one down below. And while you're in there, while the machine is apart, just go in and take the literally 15-20 seconds to do the wires and have them crimped with ferrules so that you know that connection is secure and safe. The screen is mushy and has a bunch of glare. Now, obviously, for $180, I don't expect the screen to be a super HD color display with all these features. It's going to be a budget screen. Now, they didn't put a lot of settings in here. There is not a lot that you can do in the menu. So if you're going to be calibrating this machine, you're going to be doing it some other way. You're going to hook it up to your computer. You're going to hook it up to a Raspberry Pi, that sort of thing. So you're not going to be spending a lot of time on here except for clicking the file that you need to print. But it is a low quality mushy screen. It has a lot of glare, and I find it interesting that right on the top here, as you saw by some of the footage, there's a warning that says no sundries here, please keep clean. Now, that's not a sticker, that's like on the printer. I don't know what that means. And English isn't my native language, but I have no idea what sundries is. I have to look that up. I'll Google it. The extruder is an older style MK8 design. Yeah, so this is how they cut majority of the costs from this machine, because otherwise everything outside of the screen is somewhat decent quality, but the direct drive extruder that they used here, not bad, just old. It's just an old design. And the reason why I say that, and I probably should take off the fan to show you, but just, I guess, believe my words, is right after the actual extruder itself, which is a single gear extruder, there's just a threaded heat break. It's just a long, about 26 millimeter threaded heat break with a PTFE tube inside that just goes to a block with a nozzle in it. Now, all that is standardized, so you can buy new ones, you can easily replace them, but there's no heat sink, there's no anything. The fan just blows on that area, and I guess because the heat break is all threaded, those threads act as a heat sink for this printer. Now, as you can see, it doesn't, in these type of prints is what this printer is kind of like meant to print. You're not going to see that as any kind of issue. Longevity, I don't know. All of these designs have been replaced by the companies that used to make them. They've evolved into other things. So maybe it's, tried and true, but it definitely works. You can definitely replace and maintain it. It's just an older design, and that's how they cut costs on the machine. So it doesn't have an adjustable lever for tension. They tried to fix that. Well, they didn't try. They fixed that problem by putting in a yellow spring that has more tension. So you're getting plenty of tension on that gear. It's just not adjustable like even some of the cheapest extruders around. It has a full-size heavy stepper. You can look at it however you want. Like I said, it's an extremely inexpensive machine. It is a cantilever design, so I kind of would have expected them to have like a Titan style extruder instead. For example, they use a smaller stepper motor and a geared extruder. That way it's a little bit lighter, but old school, simple, proven, works for them and clearly works for this machine, as you can see in some of these absolutely flawless prints. Okay, so now getting into some of the more funky stuff. So I noticed that the delete option doesn't remove files from the SD card. So as we saw in the menus, there was a delete option to remove files from the SD card. It does ask you twice if you want to do it. And there was actually a file that I wanted to replace, so I tried to delete it, but that function just does not work. So there's a setting in the firmware that just does not work for whatever reason. Not a big deal. You can do that when you're using the SD card to put files on and off, but still, just doesn't work. Okay, so now into kind of like, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a major problem, but it's definitely a problem that needs to be addressed. I did send a message to the rep that I dealt with to get this machine, so we'll see how they reply, and I will post their reply in the description down below, so please pay attention to that. But when making a Cura profile based on instructions in their actual manual, the bed and the fans do not turn off after a print. So if the bed is set at 60 for your print, after the print is done, everything will move, but your bed will not start cooling. Hey, Future Fedder here. I just got an email from Tronxy saying that they fixed this issue in a firmware update. So head over to their website, download the latest firmware for the Crux 1, and you should be good to go. All right. Back to the video. You will have to actually come up to the machine and hit off. And the way that this works is some level of end G code doesn't seem to work with this particular build. And I've seen some videos on it, and I did some searching, and I found more resources online that say that you need to use an M190 command to stop the bed instead of an M140 command. Just a thing you can type in to the NG code, and I tried both. I tried replacing the M40 with a 190. I tried adding a 190 S0 to the end additionally, but none of those things seem to work for me. No matter which version I tried, if I'm slicing my own files, printing on this, at the end, my bed and my fan do not turn off when the print is done. So that's something that definitely has to be addressed. I think it's an easy fix, but the fact that it's not in their booklet means they're not going to be able to easily, I guess, say this to people without videos like mine or videos that they need to post on YouTube. All right, the other thing we have here is the purge before the print goes off the bed. This is the way that it's set up. They want you to pick a other machine that they have because this is too new to be in the current version of Cura, so you have to pick a different printer and then change the bed size from 235 or 220, whatever it ends up being, to 180. So the purge line is off the bed. The way you fix that is in the start G-code. There is a G1 area with 3 lines, and all of them say X1. Just change the 1 to a 3, and mine seems to go right on the edge of the print bed, so that issue is resolved nice and easy. Just something that they could mention in the book. Maybe it got lost in translation, or maybe they didn't think it's a problem, but it just purges right next to the bed, and it kind of like goes next to all the belts over here. So I always watch it, and I always remove that before the print starts anyway, but just to note that that does happen. So those two end things I think need to be addressed by Tronxy. I see that this is becoming a more and more popular machine, so I have a feeling as soon as the holiday is over in China, Tronxy will definitely reply with a fix, and I will mention it down below how to do it. For me personally, not a deal breaker. All right, that's all I have for cons. I think most of the cons here kind of makes sense based on the price range and what this printer is. I would not compare this directly to a Prusa Mini. I think the Prusa Mini is a premium printer, a small premium printer. Everything about it is somewhat premium. However, this machine, everything about this is kind of budget. Everything here is on point with what the printer costs. I'm not surprised by much. However, the First Pro is a surprise, and this is actually the only machine that I have that does this. Not only do the fans all turn off when the machine is not in use, but the screen does too, which means the whole machine, when it's idle, is off until you need it. In fact, it's on right now. When I click the screen, there you go, the screen turns on. I have all my options. Everything is on and ready to go, but none of it is using any power, and all of it is off and actually in idle. I think this should literally be a thing for every single printer, so huge kudos to Tronxy for putting this on their machine, and this should be on all of your future machines, definitely. This is one of my favorite features. Like I said, I love when everything just turns off when it's not in use. All right, so it was a breeze to put together. 5 bolts, 1 plug. Anybody can do this. Anybody can take this out of the box and print from the SD card. I see some people have been using the King Rune profile in Cura. Just select King Rune. I think it's a KP. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they only have 2 machines, so it's one of the machines, and then everything seems to work right out of the box with 0 tweaks. I went ahead and did it how the manual said, and I ran into problems. But really easy to put together, among some of the easiest machines to put together. All right, so we have USB, SD card, and ways to connect to your computer. I like that all 3 exist. I like that they give you a little adapter with the SD card. Most machines give you one of these, but they don't have a USB option to plug this right in. It just makes it so much easier to manage files. And one more thing about that, I saw that they have a Wi-Fi option. I think it's around $30, where it's a plug-and-play Wi-Fi chip that you can add into here. And if you use Cura, there's an MKS Wi-Fi option that you can use to print completely wirelessly to this machine. Now, I don't have that little upgrade, but I did see that it is available for this printer. So I like that they give you all of these options, and I like that there's already somewhat of an upgrade path for the machine if you like it, and if you like using it and you want to invest a little bit more money into it. Super compact printer, and this one goes kind of along with this one. Is not only is it extremely compact, one of my smallest machines at the moment, is that it is a great out-of-the-box experience, and the prints have all been flawless. I kind of mentioned that as I've been going along here, but it's true. A $180 machine, you kind of expect to put in some work. For just as an example, the Voxelab Aquila, which I know is a very popular printer on this channel, around the same price, but it comes in as a kit. You have to spend an hour, sometimes 2 hours, depending on your experience, on putting that machine together, and you have to do it all, completely manually. Whereas here, it's all together. It's obviously a little bit smaller, but you do have some fun little features here that the other machine just doesn't have. So it's kind of interesting. It's a balance. This machine uses standard components such as nozzles, stepper motors, screws, cables, fans, pulleys, belts, coupler springs, everything, well, Almost everything on this machine is a standardized part that you can get somewhere on the internet, on Amazon, all over the place, and that's definitely welcome. The only things that are not are their extrusions that have the embedded rods in them. That's unique to Tronxy, and actually I do believe some Delta machines use that, like FL Sun machines use this same thing. Those parts are also available. They have these things have this carriage on both top and bottom. It's the same carriage and everything kind of mounts to it. I actually really like the system. Like I mentioned, their other machine has it as well, and I enjoy it there. So that's definitely a plus for me. I think it's expandable, I think it's serviceable, and for a budget machine like this that'll probably wear out in the future, I like that all those parts aren't proprietary. That's a huge plus. Another major benefit here is the temperature goes up to 275, and actually this is the reason why I see some channels and some reviewers print things like nylon and ABS on here. I guess without them realizing that the heat break is has a PTFE tube in it. For me personally, I'm not heating past 245 on the hot end with a lined heat break, and that brings me to the last thing that I have here on the list. Is there's an upgrade path with several things, one of them being the all metal hot end, and what you can search for is the MK8 MakerBot heat break. Those heat breaks are available on Amazon. I think there's a few that are inexpensive and that are all metal that might be worth trying. I didn't see any bimetal, but that's because this is an older design of heat breaks, but they are available. So you can get an all metal heat break for this printer, throw it on here, wouldn't have to do anything except for re-level the machine, and then you can use your 275 C on the hot end, which is really nice. So it can go high, it can go hot, and the cooling is really good with this fan. The shroud could be a little bit better, and I'm sure there'll be designs that you can print all over the place in the near future, but the fan is definitely capable of blowing some decent air. So yeah, that's the pros and cons list. I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons. The cons can be fixed with just some minor adjustments, so I'm not going to worry too much here. As you can see in these prints, man, they're just outstanding. There isn't any seams. You know, sometimes you get files that are on the SD card that are just, well, they're not sliced properly. These are all nearly flawless, if not flawless prints. PETG came out great. The TPU super soft. These are nice and useful. Here's one on the battery right here, little XT60 connector. Let me talk to you about these printed Lego bricks. My daughter and I have been building some Legos. She actually fractured her arm, unfortunately. So we've been doing some indoor Lego building, and we were missing this particular piece, and I was able to print it on this machine, and it is accurate enough with this nozzle, with its settings out of the box, to print completely capable and compatible bricks. I have some real Lego down below here. This is actually the actual part that this goes on. It makes like a little birdhouse type of thing, but you can totally build with this set. It's completely compatible, like I mentioned, and it's just very impressive that such a low budget machine can print you know, at this level without any kind of modifications. So very nice, fun little machine. If somebody's looking for something this small, it's easy to recommend. You just have to know what you're getting into with a budget machine. Alright guys, I think that's all for me today. Definitely check out our Patreon so you can see these videos early, talk to me directly. Check out our Discord server where you can get all of my profiles. There's contests, there's giveaways there, there's troubleshooting for your machines, talk about things that you might want to purchase as upgrades or just show off your cool prints. There's lots to do on there, and that is completely free as well. Check out some of my merch if you go to my YouTube page here. There's a shop button, as well as the community page where I ask you guys questions. I share some behind the scenes, things of that nature. So, yeah, I think that's all from you guys. And as always, I'll see you all in the comments. Later.